Welcome back to my channel. Yesterday on Twitter/Instagram/Facebook, I posted an Ask Me Anything, and I mean anything. It could be about the autism, it could be about the goth, it can be completely unrelated to anything whatsoever, and you didn't let me down, folks. So I collected a whole bunch of questions from people, and I'm going to read them. My computer is right here, so if I'm not looking at you, it's because I'm looking at the question, so I'm sorry. Here we go. First question from the Neurodivergent Squirrel. What's it like being an actually autistic goth, and what music do you listen to? Good question, Squirrel. I like your name. What's it like being an actually autistic goth? Well, I think the goth gives me almost like a safety blanket. I've always been weird to other people, but there was never any focus to it. It was just people knew I was weird. Like I just had this huge target on me and I never knew what it was all about. Turns out I just act differently, and people would stare at me and talk crap about me, and I would just have nothing to go on. As a goth, people seem more interested in what I have to say when I look like this. I don't know if they think I look scary or just cool, but it's something for people to stare at that's not more personal, you know, if that makes any sense. So I like to have something to show people. I don't know if that's the answer you wanted, but what music do I listen to? Well, what music don't I listen to? My favorite band of all time has been the Alkaline Trio. They are a sort of punk band, but they have also kind of like a goth appearance sometimes. They kind of blend the two. They're no longer together as a band. Matt Skiba is now in Blink-182, and the other guys are off doing their own things. I don't really get into country music so much. There are a few songs I like, but I'm not like into country music, and I don't really listen to rap or hip-hop because I don't really know that much about it. It's just not something that I'm drawn to. I am more drawn to music with layers, I guess. Electronic, like industrial, and anything with like heavy bass and guitars, and like I really like heavy metal. But then there's some like chill stuff I really like. Sometimes I'll play Tears for Fears Head Over Heels on repeat just because I really like that song, and I like the video for it too because he's so like awkward, and that's me. And lately I've been listening to Gary Newman on repeat. That guy blows my mind. Second question comes from Jonestown on Twitter. How do goths feel about punks, like traditional punks? Oi. Suppose there's no set outlook of goths upon punks. How long have you ID'd as a goth? When I was in high school, I kind of tiptoed into the punk scene a little bit because some people I was friends with were punks, and it was an interesting thing. It looked different, they acted different, they were all about like rebelling and, you know, making their own rules and stuff. But as it turns out, that kind of punk has a lot of rules. Like, you have to specifically like punk rock, and you have to specifically like act and look a certain way. And that was right before, like, that was ramping up into like the pop punk, where that became huge all over like TV and radio. So that kind of muddied the waters for it, where like you're not a real punk unless you listen to like the old school stuff and dress a certain way. And if you dress like these new people, then you're a poser. Like, being a punk was all about avoiding the term poser, and I just wasn't that like devoted to it. So then I got introduced to my first friend who was a goth. He goes by Zero, and I was like, this guy is so cool, and he just does whatever he wants, and screw the labels. And I was so much more accepting of it. In fact, he was the first person to put goth makeup on me. Like, he did like this black on the lid and then like red coming out from it, and it was the coolest thing. I don't know if I have any pictures still, but I was like 17, 18, I think, at the time. And I was like, yes, this is me. Oh, that scared some people in my family. But how long have I identified as goth? This is a relatively recent thing. Like, I guess since that moment, I had always been, like, interested in it and drawn to it, but I never committed myself to it until probably this past November, when, like, I got so interested in it that I was like, I'm gonna do this. But I was watching a YouTube channel, Aurelio Voltaire, who was talking about how he was kind of the same way, where he was like, I need someone to tell me what to do. And then he was like, he learned that it's something you just do, you know? You don't have to look for permission anymore. You give yourself permission to just do it. There's no right time to do it. You just do it. And that was when I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about doing this. I've been wanting to do it since my teenage years. It's time to do it. The reception has been overwhelmingly positive. I was kind of expecting, you know, one or two people to be like, oh, you're such a poser. What are you doing? You're suddenly a goth now. But I haven't gotten any of that. I've been fortunate enough to work places that are okay with it. Even one place I don't work at anymore, where they were like, we want you to look like a professional. Even they were like, go for it. We like it. It's cool. And the guests are responding to it well, so keep doing it. And I was like, yes. Probably November, December, so not very long. But I have been interested in the goth subculture for practically my whole life. I'm giving really long-winded answers, and that's partially from the autism. I guess that's what I do, you know, and I'm sorry if that bothers you. Next question from Autistic Zebra, Melissa. Hello, Melissa. How you doing today? Melissa wants to know, where can I find goth clothes for a skinny 9-year-old? She's complaining that girl clothes are too colorful. Not every girl is bright and cheery, you know. I totally agree. And I'm not sure where you get, like, actual goth clothes for smaller people. I get all of my clothes and stuff from wherever I can find them the cheapest. There are a lot of websites that cater to goth people, but those clothes are like hundreds of dollars a lot of times, and since she's 9 years old and probably still growing, I get a lot of my clothes from like Ross and TJ Maxx, Wish.com, Target, whatever has like fits my dark mood. It doesn't necessarily have to be designed for goths. Like this was just like a random shirt with this cool jagged hemline, and I thought that was really cool, and it's really flowy and it's comfortable. For we autistic people, we know all about having uncomfortable clothing, and whatever this is made out of, it's super soft and smooth, and it just feels good. It lets the air in. But yeah, this was like maybe $10 at Ross or something. And the choker is from Wish.com. It was like $1. The most expensive thing I'm wearing right now is a lipstick, which was like $12 from Pretty Zombie. So I would say try your local thrift stores. If you like to go to Goodwill, try there. They sort everything by color. And you can always, like, a lot of goth is like DIY. So if you find something that she really likes but it's too big, just, you know, find some way to creatively alter it and, you know, make it her own. I like black and I like dark, deep shades of red. So I hope that helps. Next question from CLE. Does your autisticness make you want to secretly wear rainbow socks under your goth outfits? As it happens, I wear these bright pink elephant socks under my pikes. I love elephants, first of all. Elephants are my favorite animal. They're like my spirit animal, and they're so cute. And elephants are capable of empathy, and they mourn their dead, and they have funerals, and they empathize for other animals, even like baby predator animals. They will defend from like dangerous situations. Elephants are really cool, alright? And I hope they make a comeback. I want us to clone mammoths and make them real again so I can ride on one. I don't have like full-on rainbow socks. I want like those knee-high like tube socks that like Tank Girl has. Those would be awesome. And I'll get those in rainbows, totally. Tammy Love asks, why is autism considered a disability? I am physically disabled and have been wondering about this for a long time, just never asked before. That is a great question, and in fact, there's a debate about this in the autism community. Is it a disability? My answer is no and yes. Because autism is a full spectrum, there are many people who are abled enough to speak about it and kind of live their lives somewhat independently, but then there's a lot of us who will never be independent, and that's okay, you know. We all have our own story, but to say that autism can't be a disability is kind of I don't know. It's ignoring a whole like half of our brothers and sisters who will always be relying on other people to help them in their day-to-day lives. Yes, in some cases autism can be a disability. But then again, what actually is autism versus the comorbid things that come with it? Like, I don't know enough about it to really fully answer that question, but that's my understanding about it. When I worked at Disney, there was quite a few people all over the spectrum. Some of them could walk on their own, some of them were in wheelchairs, and they were all lovely people. I would always try to ask them directly, like, you know, how are you enjoying the parks today? And what was your favorite parts of it? And what was your least favorite parts of it? Because I liked to have that feedback too. Some of them would answer for themselves and they loved the parks, but it was really loud and there's a lot of people who get in the way of the wheelchair. And then some of them just wouldn't respond at all, and that was fine too. And in that case, their caretaker, the parent, whoever, would say, oh, they loved it, it was great, you know, here's what we did today, and that's fine too. There's this thing about speaking over autistic people. You know, don't do that if they can speak for themselves, but in that case, you know, you're giving me feedback, it's fine. But yeah, sometimes it's a disability, sometimes not. Next question I received from Instagram. What random stranger has had the biggest impact on your life? Oh boy, this was asked by No Future Clothing. I have this friend who I have since met, but at the time was a complete stranger. This is gonna get really dark, I'm sorry. Many years ago, I got in touch with a friend who had been long lost, went to visit this friend, and it ended up being the worst time of my life. I essentially ended up being held hostage, and they used me and abused me, and it was a total gaslighting situation where once it was all over, it was my fault, and I was left wondering, like, why did I do this so wrong? What's going on? I felt just absolutely destroyed by this person. And at the time, I had just met this friend online through World of Warcraft, and I was messaging him from this person's house. I was telling him, you know, what was going on. I feel like I'm going to die here. And he was like, what's your phone number? I'm going to call you. So I gave him my number, and like this guy who I had never met before ended up keeping me on the phone. But he had a wedding to go to in the morning, but even then he stayed up and kept me on the line, kept me talking, and kept me like pulled me through it, and never once made it seem like I was, you know, a burden, like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm doing this. It was just completely there for me. I'd never been treated like that by anybody in my life, like that I've known, and it was just, the fact that there's actually people out there like that was a complete shock to me. So I guess, Sir John, you had a huge impact on me, and I'm glad I got to meet you finally, and I would like to do that again sometime. We should really hang out again. That got all emotional. I'm sorry. But yeah, my friend John from World of Warcraft. Question from Twitter from Muppet Vomit. You win as far as names go. What's your favorite thing about being on the spectrum and the worst? Ooh, that's a good question. My favorite thing of being autistic, a person with autism, is, I guess I have this different perspective on everything. Sometimes I can solve other people's problems just by having this outside of the box way of looking at things. It gets people to see complex issues in a different way, so they get their answer or they move on. I am like a walking photo album for people, for memories that most people have long lost forgotten. Before I knew I was autistic, I was like, I have a really good memory for things that happened like forever ago. I remember in detail my second birthday, right? So I would have all this like repository of information in my brain from little things that most people don't remember. But then I would talk about it and they'd be like, wow, how do you remember that? And then they'd start remembering. And it was like a photo album for them. And they're like, wow, I forgot all about that. So I guess that's probably my favorite thing, is my memory and my ability to see things from a different perspective. The worst thing about it is probably I get distracted so easily. That drives other people nuts, especially at work, when I'm like trying to do one thing and then I start to do something else and I forget to do that, and then they're like, are you listening to me? And I'm like, I'm trying. Right now there's someone parked outside my window blasting loud ass music, and it's like really distracting my brain. I wish I could tune that out. I wish I had that ability to just not hear things I don't need to hear, you know? So that's probably my worst thing. I want to be able to like focus my brain the way normal people apparently can do, so I can get some more writing done. Next question from Tercio Virgo. I'm so sorry, I probably butchered that. You can slap me later. This person has 3 questions in one, which is great because I don't have to hit as many buttons. Number 1, if I was trying to get into Gothic Rock, what 5 acts would you recommend me? Oh man, I have to count. Bauhaus started it all. Voltaire, because he's like a smaller act, but he's phenomenal and inspiring. And he's all over YouTube, so you can easily check his stuff out. I'll link all of these, by the way. I'm just gonna go all over the spectrum here, I guess. Gary Newman. He is a fellow Autistic Goth who, I know you've heard him before, but he was a vastly different act back then. But if you look up Gary Newman Cars and hear that, and then you hear his new stuff, you're gonna be like, that was 3. I like Birthday Massacre. They're like a synth rock sorta thing. It's a female fronted band from Canada. They're crazy good. I love layered stimmy music like theirs, and I'll never get enough of it. Old Metallica? I don't know. Again, I have such a different like genre, like musically inclined head that I don't even know. My favorite song by Metallica is Sanitarium. That gets me going. That's probably not what you're asking though. Okay, well, my other camera's battery just died, so I'm gonna keep using this one. The Cure? I don't want to like name drop a bunch of bands that I don't like specifically listen to on a regular basis. So Peter Murphy, who was the front of Bauhaus but then went solo. Oh, I can't get enough of Peter Murphy. Like, very chill, because I have a very broad taste anyway, so I can go from the chill Peter Murphy to the 9 Inch Nails and stuff like that. Number 2, there's a Netflix series about a guy who likes penguins. Can't remember the name. What do you think about it? I have no idea. Haven't heard of this, but I'm gonna look it up. Number 3, what do you think about Kanye West's music? I don't listen to Kanye, I'm sorry. I have heard rumors that he wants to run for president in 2020, and, well, go for it, I guess. I don't know how much worse we can get right now. I don't really have anything against him. It's just not what I am into, I guess. I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll try it. So, since my other battery died, I guess that's my cue to wrap it up here. So, thank you guys for submitting your questions. I want to do this again sometime, and hopefully I'll get better at, answering the question and not rambling off about nonsense. But this is what we do. Thank you so much, and I hope we can do this again soon. Let me know if you have more questions. Leave a comment here, or you can find me on Twitter. I'll link it. You don't have to worry. Just go down there. And, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye. Boom.